INDX Global. In conversation with Arc Daily and Design Boom, powered by Woodvisor.
Hello everyone, my name is Claire Brodka. I'm Managing Editor at Design Boom and we're here with INDX Global at Milan Design Week. Thank you all for joining me.
Thanks to you as well.
The topic of this podcast is the purpose of luxury, or the luxury of purpose. I'm very excited to speak to all of you. I would love to kind of just have you quickly introduce yourselves so our audience knows you a little bit, and then we can dive right into the questions.
Hi, this is architect Priyanka Mehra here. I represent a studio called PS Design. We are based out of Bombay and Delhi, and we are doing work across India and a couple of work in the Middle East. Such a pleasure to be here.
Hi, I'm architect Simran Boparai. I'm the founder of Simran Boparai Architecture. So we do palaces and mansions that spread across India, US and Dubai. We are based in Dubai, Gurgaon and Chandigarh at the moment. Thank you so much for having me here.
Hi, I'm Ashmit Alag. I run Transform Design from New Delhi, Singapore and Chicago. Glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Adreesh Chakraborty. I'm the founder of the Earth Home. We are an architecture interior design practice, and we do a lot of work with sustainability and luxury, which is interesting because the topic kind of merges here.
And it's lovely that you bring this up because that's a perfect cross to my first question. So yes, thank you. I'm very excited to have such a great mix of you here. I think it'll make for a very interesting conversation. So my first question, and again, you've provided a perfect introduction to this, is, you know, we often associate luxury with exclusivity, but I think what's very important is how can we pivot that towards purpose?
So if you see a city like Milan, anything that is well made and anything that is built to last, has to be built with the intention and the, material systems that would exude luxury in itself. And I think that anything that lasts, like some parts of Milan are really, really old, that is true sustainability because you're not reusing that building after 50 years, 60 years. And these buildings are beautiful. And I think beauty is one of the most important aspects of, why you'll take care of something. And I think beauty and hedonism and good materials and with an intention to build to last is luxury. And that is why these cities, if you see, are here, and we come here every year. And it's just a pleasure to be in cities like this.
So you're interpreting purpose in a way of longevity.
Longevity,
yeah.
Yes. And I mean, true sustainability comes from not having to redo the whole thing after 20 years again.
Right.
And I think if you look at the world today, the buildings are built to last not even for a lifespan of, 50 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, even though the material might last 100 years, if you look at concrete or steel, it'll last. But, the pressures of the industry are such that it becomes defunct.
Right. If we look at purpose from like a more social inclusivity aspect, how would you guys say that we can pivot luxury towards purpose a little bit more?
So I think when we talk about luxury, somehow we've put luxury in a segment of exclusivity. Okay, but I feel that bringing luxury to the masses, to the general public, is something that we should definitely look at. Whether it's inclusion of art in public spaces, which when you walk through, I think it's the park at Copenhagen, if I'm not sure, where they've taken aspects of the culture and they made a sculpture out of it, which people can actually relate to. I'm not remembering the name of the park right now, but I think that is what is very important. Okay, today we cannot just say that luxury is only for the ones who can afford it. But as somebody who's walking on the street, for me, seeing an art installation which I can relate to is luxury. Having smaller and finer things in our public spaces, whether it's thinking about walking paths or a better system of drainage, like cities like ours in India, that is a true luxury. It's not so much in the West. But for me, if I'm walking through, certain well-developed cities in India, and I walk through a path which is not broken, that's a sense of luxury that
Yeah,
I think we
I-
need to bring in.
In the sense of public.
In the sense of public infrastructure. Of course, you always talk about evoking a certain emotion in all these spaces. You don't only say, okay, I've put the best of the marble, I've put the best of the granite. But what does it do to you when you walk into a park, when you walk into any space? What does it do to you? Isn't that true luxury?
And oftentimes high materials can translate into that feeling. So I think it's a combination of, as you say, kind of keeping in mind the public well-being, the public sense of luxury, but also to your point of, high materials, high quality, durability, and, designing something to last, whether it's a public sculpture or a building, is one possible way of pivoting towards purpose.
I would like to add to it. I feel that luxury for me and how it transcends in my work is by creating spaces that are meant to be designed for generations, that are meant to be designed for a legacy. So when I think of luxury, I feel that if a space is able to tell the story of its inhabitants, it's able to speak for them, that for me is luxury. Especially I feel specifically the kind of projects which we do, they are of big scale, they are mostly palaces, they are designed to outlive generations. So for me, luxury just relates to one word, which is legacy. That's for me is the strong statement for luxury.
For sure, and that's something that I've touched upon in previous sessions with other conversation partners, is the fact that in the West, we're obviously, we're in Milan. I'm of German, Iranian heritage, but that's also a fun dichotomy because, in Iran, it's much more multi-generational houses. In Germany, that's not something, and in much of Western Europe, that's not something that necessarily is inherent, right? So I think your point of legacy touches on yours of durability in terms of, outliving and purposefully designing something that is...
I mean, even using the materials that age gracefully. Luxury doesn't mean you have to use, like she rightly said, doesn't mean using expensive marble. It could be using the materials that are designed to outlive, that are designed to age beautifully, and over time when you look at that project of yours, and still you say that, yes, this is one of a masterpiece of luxury we designed. So luxury could be interpreted in very different ways. I think it also depends upon the perception of a designer who's doing that project. Luxury for me could be different for him. So that's...
Exactly, which is what we're finding out. So what for you would be luxury that's defined towards purpose?
I feel it's impossible to define luxury, just the way it's impossible to define God. The moment we're able to talk about it, it doesn't become luxurious anymore. It commoditizes itself. And luxury absolutely is dependent on exclusivity.
Okay.
It's like saying nobody wants old, but everybody wants antique. But for antique to become antique, it has to go through the journey of old. Majority of it has to be destructed permanently so that you're left with very few pieces. And that's what makes it an antique.
Right.
So if it's available, if it's thinkable, it's probably not luxury. My favorite definition of luxury comes from my younger brother. He says, not only is it not for the common man, it has to be protected from the common man.
Interesting. So how would does that then completely exclude the idea of designing luxurious things for a purpose? It doesn't have to be like a social good, but do you feel like that is not combinable in any way?
No.
Okay.
No. If it's purposeful, then it has an intent.
Yes.
Right? And then you're creating something so that it fits a need. But luxury is about nothingness. It's the ability to do nothing at the repercussion of nothing.
Interesting. I guess I agree with you in some respects, but I also think that the idea of, you know, defining luxury for each individual, but also for the public, I think that's a different spectrum, a different scale, in terms of, you know, something that is luxurious to one person might not be luxurious for another. I agree with you in terms of the, you know, limited capacities, and I think that's a very defined way of looking at it. I do think that maybe for my understanding, you know, purpose and luxury don't have to completely be separate in order to work.
I completely agree with you on that. I mean, like what she was saying about public spaces, like if you look at, say, St. Petersburg or, say, Duomo, you know, the public square. Yes. I mean, it's a super luxurious, you know, experience to just see those buildings, and it's a public square. Yes. And, you know, I think one of the things about inclusivity is that if I compare these spaces with other public spaces across the world, you know, there's a psychological behavioral change that happens when somebody is in a luxurious, nicely made space. Yes. They will
You start
automatically
taking care
take care of it.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's a slowing down. I think
yeah.
it's also a time
And
thing.
why would we only stick to certain people? Why not have inclusivity for everybody? I
Exactly.
think that is
And that's what I meant in terms of, you know, maybe luxurious, if we look at it from just a time perspective, because you also agree with this from your nodding, is that, you know, anything that makes people come back to their bodies and slow down and enjoy and be in the moment, I think could be defined as luxurious for me.
Yeah.
That's very interesting that you say that, come back to your bodies. I mean, I'd like to take on from that later on, but yeah.
You can take on from that right now.
And she can have a take on you right now.
So, you know, so luxury, I mean, from my analysis, I mean, there are three parts to it, like what becomes luxury. Number one is aspirational. So, you know, from the time you're a kid or something, you wanted to have something. And when you grow up, I mean, you go and you buy it, you've made it in life, you know, I mean, whether or not that object improves your life or not, doesn't matter. You know, you made it. You've made it in life. You kind of arrived. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is signaling. So, you know, when suppose somebody's arrived at another stage of life, they would signal that, you know, oh, I'm so-and-so. And it's been with the Roman feasts. And I mean, signaling is very inbuilt into a psyche. That is also not true luxury because you're just doing it for somebody else. I think the main luxury, I mean, for me at least, I mean, it comes from hedonism. Like, if I'm being hedonistic completely, you know, it's pleasurable for my body. I mean, if it's a chair, I'm sitting on it, I'm really enjoying it, like good food, you know, anything. Whether or not, you know, the cost doesn't matter, the materials don't matter. If you know, we stay in buildings and we use furniture only for our bodies. Yes. I mean, if we didn't have a body, we won't require it, right? So it has to be completely pleasurable to the body. And I think if you're really being hedonistic, and if you look at it like our clients, you know, they're people who have worked their lives and then they want to create something, you know, with whatever they've worked with. And I mean, for us to put something together and to give them something which they really enjoy, you know, I think that sensibility of hedonism, I think, is very, very important for us.
I think that's a very interesting point that you bring up, because I feel like the hedonistic part is a selfish part, but then the signaling is something that is outward. So, pivoting from the prepared questions, would you all say, and I feel like I have a sense of where this could go, but is luxury something for yourself? Is luxury something for other people?
I would say like how Ashmit said, luxury is different for different people. So for me, time is luxury. For somebody, a clean bed is luxury. Okay. So I think it takes from where you are at a certain point in life. You know, like I'm a working mother. For me, you know, I travel quite a bit. So the time that I get with my children is the only thing that is precious to me, and I would do anything to get that time, and that is what luxury for me is. for somebody else, who probably doesn't have a clean house to stay in, if he gets to stay in a really luxurious hotel, that is what the luxury is. So how do you? I think it's very personal, and it's defined by what your heart desires.
Right. I do think the signaling aspect, though, is something that can't be, it's also a cultural difference, I think, depending on where you are in the world. But at the same time, I think, especially when it comes to spaces and buildings and design and interiors, you're inviting people into your home, you're telling them about yourself without needing to say anything, because, your home speaks for you.
Absolutely.
So I do think that, in a personal sense, it's the luxurious qualities of a material, but it's also the signaling, right? The social aspect of I'm choosing this luxury, yes, for myself, but also to show people something. I think, especially probably for you, this is, it's a very purposeful selection of
where you want the spaces to speak for themselves without actually being out there. But at the same time, I agree with her that it is very personal. Luxury for someone could be totally personal, while for someone else it could be more about the space, more about the design. Right. So, and I agree with him, whose luxury is more about comfort as well. Like the furniture he talked about is designed for human body, so it's more about comfort.
Right.
I feel luxury is very inwardly, and hence it becomes very spiritual. If you're showing off, then you're literally showing off. That you're showing off, this is a big deal, or it's a good possession, you're proud of it, it's a big deal for you. And it is a big deal for you, which means you look up to it, which means you're relatively lower than it. So when you position luxury, you're actually not luxurious.
I think it comes back to this idea of the gap between, right, this exclusivity, the fact that, and I think you're right in that luxurious is always something that is higher than your current state, whatever that current state might be. And this can be so abstract as your current state is not with your children. Right. The luxury is, it's something that there's an element of desire, which comes back to the hedonism, but there's a gap in between the current state of being and what you would like or want to be, surrounded with. So I think that's very interesting.
And what he's saying, I've seen a couple of my clients. I think they're in something called post-luxury.
Post-luxury.
Yeah.
We're going to coin that term now.
Yeah.
Tell us
I
more.
think it's already coined. So post-luxury is, he sent somebody to pick me up from the airport. That guy came in like a GLS or something, okay? He was as a vendor, very small vendor. He came in a GLS Merc and picked me up and whatever. And then 10 minutes down the line, this guy is coming in a small car, like a Wagoner or something. And he has he's probably one of the most well-to-do guys in India. And he has no point of view because he
doesn't care.
He doesn't care anymore.
They don't care.
He's dressed well, he's dressed in very comfortable clothing, but he's not like, signaling at all.
Because there's a point, I guess, that you reach. I wouldn't know, but I guess at some point there's a point that you reach, as you say, where it's,
but there is a point that people never reach also. There are points, like whether we talk about clothing or we talk about furniture. We had a client who said, I want every piece in my house to be a Fendi or a Giorgetti or and there are clients who said, I don't want anything to do with brands at all.
Exactly.
I want to look at the quiet luxury, which is what Ashmit has been talking about.
Right.
So again, I think the definition is really, really personal. So by the guy who's sitting on a Fendi sofa will say, no, this is luxury. He's going to argue with it. Yes. He's going to say that I've put these paneled walls and I've put this brand and I've spent so much money. And somebody said, but do you sleep well?
Yeah.
So it becomes relative.
That's the aspiration and signaling aspect of it.
I think it's also the difference between the rich and the wealthy. The rich needs to show that he is rich, and he is dependent on objects, and a wealthy goes beyond it. But taking the example, for instance, saying that somebody doesn't care and they can be comfortable in anything, it also talks about a culture. If you've lived in money long enough, you would not have a small car to begin with. The fact that a person has a big car and a small car, which means he hasn't really eroded from where they came from.
No, these guys are not eroded at all. I mean, that's what I was saying. It was really shocking for me, because
So it could be one
they have
generational.
brothers. No, they have brothers who have the Bentley, that whatever SUV. I mean, probably only 2 or 3 in India. They're driving within the same family. They're driving that. And this particular gentleman has no.
Because again, it's subjective,
I mean,
right?
it's-
I think it's extremely subjective.
Extremely
I think,
subjective.
I think there are people who are, we talk of Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
It's like, he apparently he
exactly.
drives the oldest, one of the saddest cars possible.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
won't you think that he's wealthy?
Yeah,
And he's
but
still
then,
having
but then there
It's
is no
the-
high and low. It's consistent.
No, it became consistent after a point, which is what he's trying
Yeah.
to say. It doesn't make a difference for
Yeah.
him. Maybe
Yeah.
it's the same for this gentleman. It
Yeah.
doesn't make a difference for him.
Yeah.
It's it's not necessarily, you cannot say that he cannot afford that car. He can, but it doesn't matter to him what
It doesn't
car
matter
he's
to him
driving.
anymore.
But isn't it a okay? So
I
then,
think
if we talk
we're
about
deviating from the topic though.
You can say one last comment, and then we'll go into the more objective.
I think we're talking
lens.
about moneyed versus luxury. Money is very different. You might have money
Yeah.
to buy all of those spectrums, but luxury is a state of mind, how you live. I mean, how do you eat? How do you eat at a McDonald's, for instance? You could be having whatever amount of money. So it's got not. Again, I think luxury's got almost very little to do with money.
Right. And this is maybe something where we can pivot towards, because I feel like craft is something that is quite important in that aspect, right? Is like what sense or what role does craft play in creating a deeper meaning for spaces in each of your experience? We've touched on materials slightly, but we've touched on, different branded sofas, but the craft element, the time element, I'm thinking of, maybe a Japanese approach where it's much more slow. It's the time included in a piece of furniture, jewelry, whichever, is a value, is maybe not a monetary value, but it's reflected in the monetary value of potentially a luxurious good, right? So in your experiences in terms of craft and working with, very highly crafted elements, buildings, materials, how is that reflected in the deeper meaning of the spaces that these elements end up in?
Go ahead.
There you go.
I think slow is necessary for luxury, and so is crafting, because when you craft, you're creating something, hopefully, which has not been made before, will not be made again. So it's extremely exclusive, and that becomes kind of necessary because it's in tune for that one particular person or the family. And anything which is, so again, we were talking about McDonald's, so we say fast food versus fine dine. Slowness is
Yes.
necessary.
And craft in both.
You're adding a soul to a piece which you're crafting. There's a human touch which is not what you achieve by, like a IKEA furniture which is made by machines. Somebody's put in that effort to craft, whether it's a piece of decorative object or that soul of that person has gone into the time and the effort. That is a sense of luxury that you would want to bring to any space. And I think craftsmen, it's becoming increasingly important today to have that inclusivity locally as well. Like India is a beautiful country. We've got so many craftsmen across, I don't know, there's a number to it if I'm not mistaken, that, each region in India has certain craftsmen, which is now where people are reviving it. There was a time that it just sort of got lost. Yeah. People are reviving it, understanding the importance of it, bringing that culture, back to what we are today, which maybe a generation lost it. So
yeah, I think the revival aspect is key here because, again, I think it's something that we valued back in the day, which brings back your antique situation. But at the same time, we got lost in the commodity of quick and easy and affordable. And now I think people are revisiting luxury even on a personal level in order to invest in crafted pieces, in like analog things. Not everything needs to be automated. Not everything needs to have high-tech elements. Like there's a beauty to analog things that I think we're visiting and rediscovering.
There's a beauty in imperfection, you know, why you would do something by hand and not just by a machine, and just talk about perfectionism all the time. As humans, we are not perfect. We make mistakes. Isn't that important that we embrace it?
Right. So you wanted to comment on the craft.
So similarly, I also feel that craft definitely is the soul of the space. So today when we do any big projects, we all designers, I think we all do the panelings, everything through millwork. Mill means a factory. Everything is being made in the factory and installed on your site. So what are we lacking in there? We are lacking in the touch of our tradition. So we are lacking in the touch of craftsmen, artisans. So when, especially coming from India, I feel there is such a rich tradition of peshwais, you know, the paintings which we use. And even all the royal families, not only in India, I would say outside of India, they have got such a big admiration for Indian craft. Not only Indian craft, I mean craft as a general, if I talk about. They want the entire place or the palace to be designed around it. So when we are designing, so we keep craft as a tangent to our design. So even when I'm designing a place, let's say I'm looking at a long aisle or a corridor, so I transcend my art or a craft around that. So for me, craft goes hand in hand with my design. So along with the millwork or the factory thing, it is very important to have a right blend of Indian or other craft, I would say, as a part of your design.
Yeah.
So for me, it adds soul to my design language, and also it is an integral part for me as a designer.
Right. Yeah, because you can't completely skip the millwork. Like there needs to be, you know, a level of production that's secured.
Some sort of imperfections, as she said, rightly, because that adds a human touch to a design. You don't feel like everything is just made in factory and out there.
Right.
There need to be some sort of minor imperfection, textures that really transcend over time.
Right. And make it palpable,
make it, you know, like it
emotional.
speaks first, like connects you at the emotional level. Yeah.
You know what is funny is, what is funny is that a lot of, I don't know how it is here in Europe, but in India, a lot of us do not appreciate our traditional craftsmanship. So Dior, I think, did a massive revival of Indian crafts, and they did a show in India.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's come to the top of the world just because Dior did it. So somebody in Dior sitting in France decided that India has that, and they do a lot of production of it in India, and now everybody wants it. You know, but it's sort of sad that we don't realize what we have and we don't appreciate it. I mean, I'll give you an example. One of our clients had these massive copper utensils in their home, and they said, so there's like, they were clearing out the home, and they said, we are throwing this. I said, why are you throwing this? I said, I'm going to go and buy these at a massive price just because I want it to work in my house as an artifact, as you know, center of attention. But that is something that we really need, as architects, we need to educate our clients at times that this is important. This craft is important. Not everything needs to be perfection.
I would love to kind of go into that and say, you know, as in your professional careers, in your roles with clients, when it comes to craft, when it comes to luxury, do you feel like you have, you know, do the ideas of luxury always come from the clients, or is it something that you can impart and that you have power over and that you can shape along with the client?
Of course, we'll always shape it, because their perception of luxury might be aspirational or from a signaling perspective, but then, you know, I mean, it'll just become a very strange mix of random things that you just put in together. It's not even curated, their perspective. So it definitely requires, I mean, that is one of the, I think, larger aspects of our design as designers, what we do. It definitely is intentional.
I think that is what they look up to us.
Yeah, that is
for.
what they come to us for.
Why they would engage us.
Yeah, that is why
they would go to Ashmit for a certain reason.
Yeah.
And, you know, Simran for a certain reason, because they do realize that this person is capable of doing this.
Yeah.
And yes, so education, I think, goes a long way. Sometimes you have to shake them up also.
Yeah.
I remember we were working with a beautiful handcrafted wallpaper, and when you start putting wallpaper, handcrafted one, the lines never match.
Yeah.
You always see that the line, and he's like, I've paid through the nose for this.
Yeah.
Why am I seeing that lines? It just
Yeah.
took us some convincing to make him understand that why it is important. So and that's our job, definitely.
We've touched on, or you touched on sustainability briefly at the beginning, but I think there's also this big shift in awareness of, we need to be, we as consumers, as clients, as architects, as designers, need to be more sustainable. There's resources are not endless, and we're trying to pivot that into a luxurious environment. So would you say that sustainability has kind of become one of the signals for ultimate luxury, or how is that reflected in your practice? Have you seen a shift?
Definitely. I would say that, I just finished school. I mean, it's just in the last stages of it. This is in Mayo College, which is one of the great schools in India, very old school. And we did a net zero building, okay? And we used all local materials. The design per se is quite modern and it's interesting, but we use things like, we made chimneys and, it's the air is just moving through the stack. There was a well next door and we used the water of the well to cool the floors, and it wasn't required really, but, as an expression, and it's very interestingly, it's an institute for AI and robotics. And we wanted the building itself to be a teacher for the students who are coming and doing AI and robotics there, and my client, very interesting, we have been working together for about 15 years now. He's just, one of those guys. And so he sponsored the school. He's an ex-student of that. So he had been, so he'd already donated some equipment before. And the students had to work around the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So all their projects had to be that. So when we made this building, it all kind of came together. And the interesting part is that the children are so excited there, and it's just a different kind of a building. It's a landmark, and everybody, even the ex-students who came. So, there's this entire excitement about what can be done. Just look at those chimneys, like, wow. And, and we are using like some 60% of the energy is not required just by passive design. And it's a complete net zero. We got solar panels and it kind of works without any energy now. We also got net zero carbon, 90 marks on that. So it's just because of the material choice, and it's all local, it's all handmade.
Right. Which is again
crafted.
I may have a slightly different opinion on this. I don't think luxury can be sustainable. I'll say why. Where did you say this project was?
Mayo College.
Mayo. Where do you stay?
I stay in Delhi.
How many flights did you take from Delhi to Mayo College to build this project? I'm not saying the project is not sustainable,
Right.
but when we speak about luxury, for me, sustainability in luxury is about what probably Simran spoke, that it has to transcend generations. It has to last long enough that you don't have to build again and again and again. You don't have to say that, why am I changing things? It's not a fleeting trend. It's something that will last you forever. A house is supposed to last you maybe 100 years. Your children, their children, they're all supposed to be living through it. That becomes sustainable luxury. Right. So, we are not sustainable luxury. We are not, none of us are practicing sustainable luxury. There are people who are staying in a site, building there. That is what sustainability is. Luxury or not, yes. Yeah. Local crafts, yes. Yes. Yeah. Not taking...
I have a slightly different take on this. Like, say for the Mayo buildings, all the buildings in that campus are like really old. Mm-hmm. So, of course, we chose materials and all that would make it last. So we use stone. So the local stone work which is there, then local stone. And if you really look at, I talked about it in the first one also, like for something to last, it has to have some basics correct, okay? Say passive design. So, I was very lucky early on in my career. I worked with somebody who's one of the pioneers on sustainability in India, Arvind Krishnan. And it gave me a perspective on passive design and all the high-end houses I have designed. There's a basic difference of 10 degrees in summers, like you walk in and it is cooler by 10 degrees in summers, and it's warmer by 10 degrees in winters. And it is, I haven't spent money for it. I've just applied my intelligence. And that is where I think, the basics require to be correct. Things which last for a very long time. I think the basic understanding of planning, all these ideas require to be like inherent in the design.
That's why I mentioned non-high-tech things before.
Yeah, it's low-tech, essentially.
It's essentially low-tech.
Low-tech, yeah.
Interventions.
I mean, you're working
that
with shadows, you're working with... It's, I think, the most amazing thing you can do.
Yeah. Do you want to comment on the sustainability aspect?
For the lack of a better word, I think when we use the word sustainability, we talk about lesser resources, less cost. The moment we're talking about less cost, we're away from luxury.
Yeah.
I think they're two completely different things. Let's say if I buy a little wallet, and that little wallet is made from the best part of the cow's hide, what did we do to the rest of it? We threw it, right? It's necessary. You want to have a couple of sips of coffee. You can't find any ordinary barista, so you just go to the best hotel. You go to their coffee shop. You order the coffee. You wanted to have 2 sips. You have those 2 sips. You waste the rest. You leave. But if you're trying to say, oh, the coffee is nice, the ambience nice, the coffee is expensive, let's have it. You're trying to extract value out of it. That's
And that to
completely
you is
different
not
from
luxurious.
life. Not at all.
Which is why I feel the luxury of design, sustainability is that it lasts much longer.
Yeah.
You spend that
Yeah.
much money on something.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
make sure that your child is using that wallet.
It should set
Yeah.
you free.
Yeah.
I mean, legacy. We buy great quality so that it lasts very long. Not because it lasts very long, but it sets you free.
Right.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yes.
So you have the rest of the time and the resources, whatever you want to, for everything else that you
Absolutely.
want.
That's
right,
a
which
great
is
point.
why I think coming back to the low-tech versus high-tech
Yeah.
situation, high-tech elements, wherever they might be,
Yeah.
don't set you free, I don't think necessarily. Maybe at first, this
Yeah.
is something that's saving you time, definitely not saving you money, but it's
Yes.
saving you time.
Yeah.
But in the long run, and I think this is what, we were talking about legacy, and I think to your point also of, sustainability maybe being like a patch that's currently thrown onto problems.
Yeah.
Or this like label of sustainability being something that's not really thought through enough
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that we can possibly all agree on, maybe.
High
is the
tech,
time aspect.
the high tech of yesteryears is absolutely low tech of now.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing. If you research it good enough, if you get the best of it, it will set you free.
Right. Yeah, potentially. I think there is an element of newness, of hype that might surround certain high-tech things currently that doesn't necessarily mean they last for a long time.
And trendy is not luxury anyways.
Exactly.
But the aspect of like what you were talking about before, like the analog versus the digital. So say I have something analog, right? It's a mechanical object and it has moving parts and I have it in my hand. And say I have tons of data and it's on the cloud. So tomorrow, if the server is gone, I don't have it with me. It's one of those black swan moments, like it's great till it lasts. And then one fine day you might not have anything. Whereas if I look at, I love analog things. And you can have them, they are with you, you can pass it on. And I think digital, like he was saying, what was high tech of yesterday, but the high tech of yesterday is also analog. Like you look at great cars,
joy in
yeah,
page
like
versus seeing it on the screen.
Seeing
Yeah.
it, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
Versus
Even if you look at cars, like there's this very interesting thing by Jeremy Clarkson. I think I was reading, I was seeing a YouTube video, and Jeremy Clarkson said that, like years back, the cars that were made would, I mean, you'd take it anywhere, nothing would happen to them. And now cars are built to last for just,
5 years.
yeah.
That's too much.
I mean,
5 years is too much.
the entire.
For the phones. Phones is one season. That's one season.
So there's also intention in that, I mean, industrial design has reached a place where they would want things to not last, so that, this.
Well, but that brings us back to the exclusivity argument. So I'd love to challenge you a little bit on that, because it's the, if they're built to be exclusive, but that exclusivity is purposefully built to only last 5 years, is that luxurious?
No. Luxury, one of the necessities of luxury is that it has to be timeless. It has to be so good that you use it longer. It's like, so fashion, the high fashion might appear to be luxurious, but it never is, because it's trendy. I mean, 4 months and 1 day and you're out of fashion. Strictly between the 4 cycles that it needs to be. But if you look at a timeless dress, or if you look at a great bag, which could have been made 20, 30 years ago, great quality, that will remain luxurious.
And you know what the funny thing is, even the brands, the first pieces that they produce are always the most iconic ones and probably the most expensive ones. They will never, as of yesterday only, we were talking about some shoe by Xenia, and the first shoe they produce is still, it's the most expensive one. They might just, because as a brand, you have to look at, taking out, to be in trend, to be up to the mark of what the children of today want. And that's also for furniture and also for design. When we talk about any piece of furniture, the Eames chair today is still the most iconic. Nothing beats it. The comfort, nothing. They may have come with so many versions of it, but the original stays the original.
Yes, and it's an item of luxury that's recognizable, everywhere. So I guess we can agree that it has to be both, right? It has to be luxurious in the quality and in the craftsmanship, and it can be expensive, but it also has to last.
It must. It has to last. It absolutely has to.
Which again brings me to the craftsmanship era. Like if you see, post World War or say modernism, there was a push for industrializing products because they could be machine made. But there was no reason for architecture to go into that, because if you look at architecture, every building is customized. So why would you just say that a building is a machine for living? If a building is a machine for living and you're customizing it for your client, then it is not really an ideological, or it doesn't come from an idea. I think it's a superimposition of what is cool, what is going on, which is industrial design, which actually has that requirement, and kind of superimposing as a language, and then trying to post-rationalize that by saying a building is a machine for living. It is never a machine for living.
Yeah, I agree with you in some parts. I think there was a true necessity, especially in urban contexts, to build buildings quickly. I'm saying buildings on purpose because they're not homes.
Right.
I think we have to distinguish between a building and a home.
Post-war Europe,
right?
when-
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even, still currently, India is a perfect example of, I think there was someone yesterday who said Indian cities are choking, right, on just the sheer amount of people, right? So it's, I think there is maybe a need for high design to also, move towards a social design aspect, which I don't think we'll be able to cover all of that today, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think we need to find a balance, right? I think that's what we can all kind of have an agreement on is find a balance between keeping things luxurious, but also making that, to go back to our first point, with a purpose.
Right.
And with an echo that has a social impact, whether it's on an individual level or a family level, or ideally on a community level or a family legacy level, as you as you said earlier. I would like to ask the fun question because I'm interested in your answers. We're in a room for dreams scenario. That's what we're kind of thinking about as a guiding light for all of these podcast sessions as well. But if you could, design a room for dreams, no limitations, what is the first element that you would all place? We can start with you and work towards you.
So the first element that I would pick is light. And light doesn't mean just the decorative light, I would say a lot of natural light. So when you're designing mansions that speak of volumes, then it is very important that the first element you choose is you design it around the concept of light. Like he was talking about sustainability in his planning. So that means I assume that he was talking about that he has done those villas where he has played a lot of emphasis on courtyard, how to reduce the temperature with the concept of how the air moves and how to create shadows in the house filtered through different courtyards, right? So if I have to pick one first element, that would be natural light, and I'll design the volumes around it. Yes.
Well, I'll have the spinning top to know if I'm dreaming or not from inception. But yeah, jokes apart. I think it would be nice to have kindness in the world. And I love Ted Lasso. I don't know if you've seen it. I think that kind of kindness is really missing. And I would say that I would be probably putting I don't know, maybe some abstract ideas of where, the world is more integrated and less divided and, less of, violence and more consciousness. And I think probably something like that.
Say the question again, please.
If you could design a room for dreams with no limitations, what would be the first element that you would place?
I'll put 3. Is that okay?
What's the first?
First would be a bathtub. Second would be a library. And third would be a bed. And that'll be all.
Thank you.
I think I'll bring in a plant. I think we are just disconnecting from the nature way too much. We're building cities that are just boxes. We're not looking at nature. So I think I'll try to build around that. For me, that is the first thing that I would want to do.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For all of your
Thank you.
answers. Thank you in general.
Thank
for sitting
you.
down with me.